Hey folks, welcome to another Irish Whiskey Review with me, Marty McCauley. I hope everything's fine and dandy with you. I hope everything's good. You're all staying safe. The world's starting to open up a little bit. We like this. I actually have some work. Tourists are coming back to see us. So we are more than happy with that. Getting to go out and talk to people was actually in a bit of a crowd the other day, which felt a bit odd. Strangely familiar, but somewhat alien these days, you know. But anyway, things are starting to open up. Now, the last review I did was of the Takamine whiskey, and at the start of it, I mentioned that one of the previous reviews had to be taken down because of sound. Just to let you know, it was a little box of old St Andrews. You know, the little things that your auntie buys you because she thinks you're into whiskey, and you try it. I tried all four of them. Yeah, not great stuff. There was one of the single malts was okay. The blend just wasn't good. But then again, that's really it's more of a Christmassy presenty type thing. Now tonight, one that's kind of dear to our hearts over here. Old Comber. Now, a lot of people will see this and say Old Comber. It's not, it's Old Comber. That's how it's pronounced. Yeah, don't ask why. But anyway, just check the glass. Okay. This has been re-released. This was an old distillery in County Down. There was actually two distilleries in Comber at a time. Comber is actually quite famous for having a type of potato that is unique to the area, Comber Earlies, and they have a whole festival of potatoes. Now it is actually said that Sir Walter Raleigh put the potato there, and I think that's a bit of a legend. I stand to be corrected. I don't mind ever being told I'm wrong. I try not to let it happen, obviously, but yeah. Now this was a very limited release. It was brought out to coincide with a TV show on the BBC, presented by Mark Thompson and Fionnán O'Connor, who we interviewed the night before the TV show aired, and just fabulous guests. If you haven't watched that episode, go back and watch the episode of the show where we interview the two of them. It runs on a little bit, but just fun. Fionnán's just an encyclopedia of whiskey knowledge, especially Irish whiskey. I mean, his knowledge is second to none, and a genuinely nice guy. I mentioned in the show that he rung me the week of the show coming on. Me and him were on the phone for about 4.5 hours discussing all manner of things whiskey. I heard a little clink whenever we started talking, and I said, "Are you having a drink?" And he said, "Yeah." So we had a virtual drink, and 4.5 hours later, whenever we hung up the phone, I tried to get up. I tried to stand up and went, "Oh dear, I'm a little bit drunker than I thought I was." So, very good. Now, old label. This is a pot still whiskey. And for those of you who don't know what pot still is, Irish pot still whiskey, again, it's a unique product to Ireland. Has to be made within the technical file. Some people get very cross about the technical file, but it's a mix of malted and unmalted barley. That's what it is. Now, back in the day, pot still whiskey was world famous. It was considered quintessentially Irish style of whiskey. It was heavy, viscous, full of flavour, etc., etc. In much the same way as Scottish whiskey is always seen as being peaty and medicinal in flavour, it's not really. More Scotch whiskey's unpeated than is actually peated, but it got that reputation. Irish pot still whiskey, there was lots of other styles of whiskey. You know, there was a lot of other whiskey being made that wasn't pot still, but that was what it was famous for. And Old Comber was one of the famous names. It was never made in vast quantities. It was made in big quantities, but not vast quantities. Now, this has been recreated by the fantastic people down at Ecklandville in County Down. So only about 10 miles away from where the old distillery was. They did the Dunville's recreation. They resurrected the Dunville's brand, and they very much see themselves as custodians of the brands. Their own spirit is coming, probably with some release this year, possibly next. We keep talking to Jarlath, we keep asking Jarlath, when's it coming, and some one of these days he'll say, it's almost here, and we'll get onto it. But they do passionately want to have the brands embedded within them, and them embedded with the brand. They see it like that. They see it as a sort of symbiotic relationship. They aren't just resurrecting the brand just to have the brand, okay? Because there's a 1,000 brands they could have picked, but the ones that are dear to the heart, they got offered Dunville's. They didn't set out purposely to do that. They got an offer of getting the brand, bought it, and decided that that's what they would bring out, rather than their own their own spirit wouldn't be under the Dunville's brand. Although they did release a touch of their own in the blend, but that was for colouring purposes. It wasn't actually. It was really, they didn't want to use any colourant, so they used a bit of their own stuff, which in some ways is a bit of a it's just a bit of a strange one to do, but that's what they did. This is going to be their pot still whiskies. Their pot still whiskey, primarily, we think, is going to be under the Old Cumber name. Now this is pretty much their own spirit, and they've released this really in very limited amount to coincide with the TV show. It's basically a forerunner for the next batch that's coming out, or primarily another batch to come out, which will have almost the same whiskey in this. This is their own pot still spirit with a little bit of pot still from another source. It's 70-30, 70% malted and 30% unmalted barley. There's no other grain in there because with pot still you're allowed up to 5% of other grain, which causes its own controversy. But their other stuff will be coming. Now, once again, the label looking fabulous. They always do good labels, but I think as they go forward, the labels will improve. There'll be a better label on it. Yeah, it's port cast finish, ruby port, and savour the unmistakable fruity aroma, spice flavour, and creamy mouthfeel. Uniquely Irish, distinctively Old Cumber, remarkably good. Crafted from an unconventional mash bill of malted and unmalted barley, every drop double distilled to perfection and famed throughout the world, which is certainly true of what it once was. And then over here you've got, back in the day you didn't have to have all this guff. Some of the stuff is on here with barcodes and all that kind of stuff, but it is. Now, Spirit of County Down is the hashtag, and www.oldcumber.com. I don't think the website's up and running just yet, but it will be. If you can find a bottle of this now, I would pick it up because it's probably quite collectible straight away. Now, I think this was finished for 4 months in a port cask, and look at the colour of that already. You know, one thing about Cumber, or one thing about Ecklandville, they always get good casks. They pay top whack for top class casks. It's kind of what they're renowned for. Why on the secondary market people aren't paying big bucks for the single cask stuff is beyond me. I have a few bottles here opened, and once they are disappeared, I'll go straight back onto the auction markets now that I've got some paid employment, and pick up some more stuff, because it's not much dearer than it was at retail. It's just fabulous. It's just amazing. It really is. It's lovely, lovely, thick, tasty, fruity. Boom. Ah, lovely. Now, this isn't going to be what they're aiming for. They're aiming for a 7-year-old whiskey. This is a bit younger than that, and they have released it really. There's a little shenanigans going on behind the scenes, we feel, and they thought it was a good idea to get a product to market. We'll not elaborate too much on that, I don't think, because I don't know all the ins and outs, but I think that's probably a fairly good assessment. Now, on the nose, cake, loads of sweetness. It comes through. There's nuts. There's like pecan nuts. Again, kind of Madeira cake, almondy type notes to it, but sweet. Jam, lots of jammy notes. Yeah, it's really quite sweet, biscuity in some ways, and like a treacly. There's golden syrup, treacly, that kind of, again, thick sugary notes. Oh, sweet. And a little bit of wine gum, yeah. Coming in from the port. Not much by way of vanilla, I have to say. Yeah, it's got a lovely nose to it, it really does. Heat, a little bit of chili, definitely. Jalapeno chilliness coming through, a little bit of burn, but nice, pleasant in that way. Again, nuts, loads of jam. The vanilla's coming through a little bit on the finish. Some barley sugar in there. The finishes just keep going on. The finish just keeps going on. And again, nice and sweet, but not sickly sweet. It's funny because I just cleaned the front of my teeth, which probably a sign of how thick and viscous it is. Being honest, it's really nice, but it could do with a little bit more age to it, just a little bit, to let it settle and marry in a little bit more. But this is a work in progress. They admit this. It's a work in progress. What's going to happen? What's going to carry on? What's going to continue? What's going to be next? We're not sure. But on the arrival, peppery, chili spice, yeah, nice hot sauce, 46%, don't put any water in it, doesn't need it. I've been playing with this for 2 weeks now, and it really doesn't need any water in it. Again, nice little candy sweetness going through there, cake, nuts, nice viscosity, nice mouthfeel. Would have liked it a little bit settled down a little bit more, but I totally see why they say this is a work in progress. If this is their first attempt, this is the initial release of their pot still whiskey, it's a massive sign of what's to come, and there ain't much wrong with this. As I say, I would just put a little bit more age to it. I'm going to give this value for money, absolutely. It's £45 a bottle, worth that. This is up there to rival, certainly, Redbreast 12. It's better than Redbreast 10, if I'm honest. Yeah. Hook yourself out a bottle of this. I'm going to give it a good solid 7.5 out of 10. That's the mark I'm going to give it. In terms of value for money, absolutely. And at 46%, it's really good. This is a sign of things to come. It's going to get better, no doubt about that. Yeah, keep up the good work, guys, and really like this. Thank you very much. So, cheers. Bye bye.